We begin tonight with breaking news. Governor Rick Scott has suspended Broward election supervisor Brenda Snipes. This follows a series of voting controversies in the 2018 midterms. Earlier this month, Snipes said she would resign and leave office on the 4th of January.
CBS 4's Jim DePede joins us now with more. So, Jim, what can you tell us about how the governor made this decision? Snipes was already on her way out the door.
She was, but now she is being kicked out the door. As part of the executive order, she's not even allowed to set foot back in the elections department without armed escorts to make sure she doesn't take anything with her. The replacement has now been chosen, and that replacement is Peter Antonacci. And Peter Antonacci is someone who has been described charitably by some as Rick Scott's fixer, by less charitable people as Rick Scott's henchman. He is, he's the person who Rick Scott uses to plug into different agencies when he wants to get control of those agencies. He's done it with Enterprise Florida, the South Florida Water Management District, other agencies like that.
Now, what sort of power could he have in Broward County? And we have the elections in 2020. Will he still be the supervisor of elections then? And what power could he have at that time?
So the appointment is through the November 2020 election, meaning that he will supervise the Broward election system through the 2020 presidential campaign. And I cannot underestimate to you how important this position is. As the supervisor of election, he will now determine how many days of early voting they have. There are a minimum number of days that the state requires the county to have, but Broward County, Dade County, other larger counties tend to do twice as many days. For instance, instead of 1 week, which is the minimum required, Dade County and Broward County have always done 14 days. He could cut that back. He can also cut back on the number of hours for early voting sites. He can also now determine where the voting sites go. All of these decisions can have a major impact on turnout and how Democrats count. And this is important because for any presidential candidate to win the state of Florida, you have to run up big numbers in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. Broward is the largest Democratic county in the state of Florida, and if you are able to, and I'm not saying he's going to, but he has the power through his position to limit the number of people voting in one way or another, cut down on the turnout in Broward County, that could swing the election in 2020.
And yeah, he's going to be here in 2020. So what are the implications now?
As I've been saying, it's a matter of just him having total control now over the election process. Again, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying that he has been brought in to do anything nefarious or wrong. There are number of people who believe he is an honest and honorable man who will go in and do a good job in terms of cleaning up that office. And I think that nobody would make an argument that Brenda Snipes didn't deserve to be removed from office. The question becomes, what type of person do you put in their place? Now, last time we had something like this, Miriam Oliphant was forced out and left the office. Jeb Bush brought in somebody from the Broward community, from a Democrat, and put her into office. That was Brenda Snipes, by the way. There were other names that were being floated if it had been in other words, if Rick Scott had not made this appointment, but it had fallen to Ron DeSantis or Carlos Lopez-Cantero, the lieutenant governor, who's expected to take over for Scott when he goes to Washington, they probably would have picked somebody from the community. By selecting Peter Antonacci, who is not from Broward, who is definitely not a Democrat, is a Republican, and a close ally of Rick Scott, what Rick Scott has done is he's now injected politics into this, and by doing this, making this announcement Friday night,
Friday night dump,
it again raises the idea that there is something a little bit shady going on here. It's within the governor's power. There's nothing anybody can do about it, but it's off to a bad start.
All right, we'll be following it. Jim, thank you very much.
And we'll have much more on the Snipes suspension and Peter Antonacci, the man picked to replace her, tonight at 11. Until then, you can find all the late-breaking developments on our website, cbsmiami.com.